I'm just taking a look at some of my hives to see what kind of room they have left, if they need honey supers and not. And I came across a hive that just by opening the top and looking at it, I can tell right away that one side of my production double nuke has failed. The queen has failed and she's just not laying. Sometimes they'll try to supersede her, or one side will get too strong, and it's something that we can usually avoid, but then that side will swarm. And because those bees don't have or they do have access to either side over the queen excluder, which separates the queen, those pheromones travel to the other side, and the hive actually does not replace that queen. So just looking at this hive here, you can see that half the hive, it looks like the bees are working it hard, and they've actually nearly filled the second super, half of the second super, but the other side is really not doing anything. So that tells me I need to tear it down, and I need to see what's going on in the other super, and usually it means the queen's failed, and then I will show you how we typically deal with that. We're down to the brood box, and there's definitely very little activity on the one side, while on the other side they are working incredibly hard. So I'm just going to take a look at some of these frames to see, to confirm that that queen is no longer with us. On this frame I can see that the brood is in its final stages of hatching, so we haven't caught it too terribly late. Most of it's cap brood. Just around the outside edges, the middle has already hatched. So when I see this type of pattern on my brood frames, and I don't see any eggs or larvae on the inside, and it's supposed to be a stronger hive, or even if it's a weaker hive, if I see this pattern on multiple frames, you don't even need to look to see if there's still a queen in there, because you know she's gone. There's no eggs in those freshly opened cells, and this time of season that queen would be really quickly filling those cells with eggs, so that the hive does not backfill that portion of the brood nest. So in the middle of the honey flow, typically what we do to remedy this is we don't bother with requeening the one side. Usually it doesn't work unless you can isolate that side by putting a cover over the half. And it's just not something we can do during the honey flow season. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the strong hive and we're going to make it into a single. And all the bees that are left on the other side will work together in this single hive, and we'll actually make it a double super. A lot of people think, well, you've just wasted a colony. If you had those separated to begin with, it wouldn't have happened. That's a possibility, but the reality is I'm going to split my hives once again. All of these double nukes will have to be split in August. I'll let this hive, because it's so strong, I'll let it grow into to fill 2 brood boxes, and then I'll split it 3 to 4 ways later in the season. So I'm getting the same amount of bees out of it, and I'll end up getting the same amount of production out of it as well, because we make our nukes late, and that means that if we were to run them alone, we would not get a very good honey crop off of them. So the reason that we run these double nucs for production is because they ramp up real quick before the canola, working together, and they make us a bumper crop off of these hives, and just a regular crop off of one that would fail. See, this other side is just exploding. Cap brood is corner to corner almost on both sides of these frames. It's just the first frame I pulled, and this is what we get, which is why within the next 3-week period we definitely need to make another split out of these, otherwise they're all in the trees. Another frame corner to corner. Really, if we didn't have such a strong canola bloom, I'd love to split this hive now. But I have to make my money on all fronts in order to survive in this business. And when you're in growth mode, with a lot of strategies, you're looking at growth only, and your pocketbook keeps getting smaller and smaller. So this is our way of putting some of those profits in our pocket to pay for our growth, because there's only so long where you have money in the bank account to make that growth happen, and once that is gone, the money's got to come in, right? My configuration is to put the frames filled with feed. There's the queen. This side she's laying well. The frames full of feed I put to the outside, and then the brood frames I put down the middle. This particular hive, the one side had 7 frames of brood. 7 frames with cap brood on them. Which means that within a 2-week time it's going to be incredibly strong. And I'll just disperse the frames from the other side, from the other colony, throughout as well. Some of those frames the bees have already prepared for brood, but they just didn't get any, so I'll put those within the brood nest of the new single super colony. Put that queen excluder back on. Redistribute these frames so that the bottom super has got the full frames. This is one of those brand new frames that I put in. You can see they've completely drawn out the one side and they are packing nectar in it, and the other side they've definitely started on, and that's in the course of 1 week that they've done that. So that's how we take care of those issues. Any questions or comments are appreciated on it. I know it's a bit of a different method to running bees, but it's all part of our expansion method and how we effectively increase at a rapid pace while still making a honey crop and satisfying our customers.